The night was still unnaturally quiet. In the tiny town of Ashwood, Maine, the radio station, WXHR 107.9 FM, sat like a relic from another era, brick building with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. It was late, and most of the world had gone to sleep, except for Eli Turner, the overnight DJ. Eli had been doing the graveyard shift for over a year, spinning classic rock and fielding the occasional late-night caller. Tonight, however, something felt off. The air seemed heavier, as if charged with static electricity. The usual hum of the transmitter was louder, vibrating through his skull. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the phone rang. He picked up, expecting some drunk college kid. "WXHR, Eli speaking," he said. A low, distorted voice whispered, "Can you hear us?" "Hello." Eli frowned. The voice crackled, barely audible over static. "We need help broadcasting." The line went dead. Eli shook his head, chalking it up to a prank call. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes, when the screen on his broadcast console flickered. A song he hadn't queued on, an old emergency broadcast recording from 1987, suddenly played. A woman's voice, urgent and terrified, screamed through the speakers. "Mayday, Mayday, this is WSR 13. We are trapped. Help us." The words repeated in loops, interspersed with static. Eli froze. This wasn't part of the station's archives. He had worked here long enough to know every tape, every recording, every emergency broadcast. There was no WSR 13. Curiosity overcame fear. He recorded the audio, labeling it Emergency Unknown, the 3rd of November '87, and checked the transmitter logs. Nothing unusual. Yet the broadcast continued, louder now, clearer, as if the voices were just outside the studio, pressing against the glass. Suddenly, he heard it, another voice, a man's voice, older, rasping. "We didn't make it. Remember us before it's too late." Eli's heart pounded. He had always joked that the night shift made people hear things. But now, he felt an icy dread in his chest. The next morning, Eli played back the recording for Sarah Bennett, the station's technician and part-time researcher. Sarah was fascinated by anomalies, ghost signals, strange broadcasts, unexplained frequencies. This isn't possible," she muttered, listening to the loops. "These voices, they're old, like from the 1980s. "Exactly, but they're broadcasting now. Through our transmitter right here." Sarah frowned. "Wait, are you saying the station is airing the dead?" Eli swallowed. "I don't know. But listen." They played the recording again. This time, the voices were distinct, more intelligible. A frantic plea cut through the static. "Help, trapped. Flood, don't let them forget." Sarah's eyes widened. She cross-referenced the names and dates embedded in the recordings with old FCC logs and newspapers. They were real, all real. People who had disappeared or died years ago, recorded sending distress signals through a station that no longer existed. Eli's stomach turned. "How is this even possible?" Sarah shook her head. I think it's not just a signal, it's a memory, a residue. Something got trapped in the frequency waves." Eli ran a spectrum analysis on the broadcast. The results defied physics. The frequencies were constantly shifting, almost alive. Every time he tried to isolate one signal, another emerged, layered underneath, as if the dead were multiplying in the airwaves. Then, a new voice came through the speakers, direct, personal. "Eli, don't stop us, or you'll be next." Both froze. Over the next few days, Eli and Sarah dug deeper. They discovered an old FCC archive that mentioned WSR 13. A small coastal station that had gone off air after a catastrophic storm in 1987. Every employee was presumed dead. The building had been destroyed, but there were rumors that the final broadcast had never ended. Signal trapped somewhere, between reality and the ether. Eli couldn't resist testing it. That night, he tuned the transmitter to WSR 13's old frequency. The static grew heavier, then parted like a curtain, revealing voices whispering help, trapped, flooding. Remember, he adjusted the dials. The voices became clearer. A frantic man screaming, a woman crying, a child calling for their mother. Suddenly the studio lights flickered violently. The air turned cold. Papers flew off the desk. The console screens warped, displaying distorted faces, pale and screaming. Eli stumbled back, heart racing. But the voices continued, pleading, desperate, almost real. Sarah grabbed his arm. "It's more than a recording. They're here. In some way, they're broadcasting through us." Eli's voice trembled. "Through us? What does that mean?" Before Sarah could answer, the voices harmonized into a chilling message. "Don't forget us, or you'll join us. The broadcast never ends." At that moment, the lights went out completely. The only sound was the broadcast, the cries, the pleas, the warnings. Eli felt a presence behind him. He spun around. The studio appeared normal, yet distorted, as if the world itself had bent. Shadows flickered unnaturally. Then, he realized the voices were speaking his name. The following morning, Eli woke in his studio chair, drenched in sweat. The recording had stopped, but a new message awaited him on the console. "We are always here." Over the next few days, strange phenomena escalated. Phones rang with dead voices. Employees who visited the station reported shadowy figures moving in the hallways. At night, The transmitter emitted bursts of sound that sounded like screaming, weeping, and distress calls in languages long forgotten. Eli realized something terrifying. The station itself had become a beacon. The dead were trapped in its frequency, and anyone who tuned in or even interacted with the console risked joining the broadcast. One night, Sarah discovered something horrifying in the transmitter logs. The timestamps of the recordings aligned with people who had died recently, all of them listeners of WXHR's late-night broadcast. They're not just memories, Sarah whispered. They're collecting, harvesting whoever hears them. Eventually, becomes part of the signal. Eli's stomach dropped. That meant the first call he had received at 2:13 a.m. was a warning, yes, but also a summons. As the hours passed, the voices grew louder, almost human in tone now. They begged, pleaded, threatened, join us, or die. Eli realized that the station had been a trap all along, a gateway for the lost souls, calling out through decades of static, and the longer he stayed, the closer he came to joining them. Eli and Sarah devised a plan. They needed to shut down the transmitter completely, severing the station from the haunted frequencies. They prepared to cut the main power lines, but the voices sensed their intent. As they climbed to the transmitter room, the air grew icy. Screens flickered, displaying the faces of the trapped, twisted, screaming, pleading. The equipment itself seemed alive, pulsing with energy beyond human comprehension. 1,000 voices whispered, overlapping, growing louder. Sarah shouted, "We have to do it, now." Eli ripped the main power lever. Sparks flew. The station shuddered as the frequencies fought to stay alive. Static screamed like a living creature. Then, for a moment, nothing moved. The world felt normal again. But when Eli checked the recording logs, one final message remained. Timestamped 2:13 a.m. A voice, faint but unmistakable, whispered directly to him. "Next will be you." Eli and Sarah looked at each other, realization dawning. The dead hadn't been freed. They had only paused. The station had chosen its next keeper, its next broadcast. Weeks later, a new DJ, unaware of the past, began his shift at WXHR 107.9 FM. He tuned the late-night frequency. A low static grew. Then voices pleading, screaming, calling his name flooded the studio. The station was alive again. The last broadcast had never ended. And somewhere, in the static, Eli Turner could hear them, whispering, "Don't forget us, or you'll join us forever."